Hi everybody, Vincent is back. I am doing my second video in my series of videos about my journey out of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Jehovah's Witnesses. And today I want to talk about, why did I leave this organization? That's a question that many witnesses would really like to know the answer to. However, the truth of the matter is most Jehovah's Witnesses don't want to know the answer to that question, especially when it comes from a person like myself. Because if you were a person like me and you were such a hardcore Jehovah's Witness and well known in every place that you went, the idea that you even left is so shocking to them, so traumatic, that in their own mind, consciously or subconsciously, they don't want to hear your story because you perhaps knew what you were doing and you may be left for a good reason. In fact, I know that because I'm not going to mention his name, but someone that has known me ever since he was little even told my son something like that to some degree. I don't remember the exact words, but basically he said, you know, your dad would not leave unless it was for a good reason. That is true. That is so true. And so a lot of people don't really want to know why I left. However, I'm going to talk about why I left, but I'll be honest, it's kind of embarrassing to tell you why I left the Watchtower. Now, if you're an ex-witness, you're going to totally understand. If you're thinking about leaving the Watchtower, you're going to understand as well. But if you know nothing about high control religions and you've never been a witness or anything, I guarantee you a lot of this stuff is just, you probably won't even watch it because it doesn't mean anything to you. But I left because I found some lies within the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Now, I knew years ago, I seen something that conflicted. I mean, I seen an outright lie in the Watchtower, and I compared it to an older book, and sure enough, they lied. They did an outright lie, and the reason why they lied about it is because they didn't want to look bad about what they had done. Okay, now I can talk about that thing, you know, for a moment, but I'm not, because it's not really important. And there are a lot of other things like that I found when I left the organization. However, it's embarrassing because, I mean, what if a Catholic came to me and said, hey, Vincent, I'm so sad, I'm so depressed because I just found out the Catholic Church lied to me that, you know, they actually do have false God images around the Vatican, and, you know, they actually support wars. And I'm really messed up today because I found that out. I mean, I would look at that guy and think, and what else? I mean, of course they were lying to you. Of course they support wars. Of course the Vatican's full of false images. I would say all of that. Okay. That's the way it is when you leave the witnesses. I mean, if a normal person off the street were to hear that, they'd say, boy, you're really messed up. Of course they told you lies. Couldn't you see that years ago? But people need to understand this is a high control religious group that uses various mind control tactics, we'll talk about that later, to keep its members trapped within. Okay, now let's talk about that reason why I left. Okay, yes, I did find lies, inconsistencies, all of that kind of stuff. However, 90% of witnesses that leave, I would say 90, maybe almost 100%, what they thought awakened them is not what it actually was. But what it is when you are a Jehovah's Witness, you carry so much cognitive dissonance. Now, I've never heard of that phrase until after I left Jehovah's Witnesses. What it is there's this conflict in your mind, things aren't harmonizing, and so what a witness does is they'll take that and they will put it on a shelf, and they'll keep doing that for years. They'll disagree with things. They know things don't make sense. It sounds ridiculous, but you keep shelving it and shelving it. But then one day you find that one little thing, and that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and then you're done. You're messed up, and your brain is just exploding. You're almost like having seizures because it's such a traumatic experience. However, that's not really what woke you up. It was just the last straw. That's the way it was with me as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, for years and years, I mean, all through the years, and I'm going to go back and forth on this subject in other videos, but there were a lot of things I did not agree with. I felt the organization was way off in their understanding of matters. I felt that they had the wrong interpretation about a number of Jesus illustrations, like in the book of Matthew about the 10 virgins. And I felt that they purposely changed or updated the meaning of a scripture because they didn't want it to be personal. For example, I'll give an example of this. There's a scripture in Psalms that says, "Precious in the eyes of Jehovah is the death of his loyal ones." Now, I'll just throw this out. We'll talk more about it later, but I don't really use the name Jehovah anymore. I do with witnesses and some others, but for the most part, I say Yahweh just because people are familiar with Yahweh, and the name Jehovah, you know, when you've been a Jehovah's Witness, even that name, it can cause trauma. So, but I don't have a problem with it if people use it. But anyway, that scripture, I used that for years. As an elder, I would go to people who've lost loved ones, and I would use that as comfort for them. I would also use that scripture if someone was dying to show how, you know, you're not going to be forgotten. You are precious in the eyes of God. Well, later on, we had new light, new updates on our understanding of scriptures, and then they, in one of their Watchtower magazines, they would say, "Hey, no, this doesn't apply this way," even though there's been, you know, different brothers that have used this in funeral talks. No, we're not supposed to do that because he's not talking about individuals. He's talking about a group. Precious in the eyes of Jehovah is the death of this group. And they didn't want us to personalize it anymore. That made me so angry that I did not even follow that direction. I continued to use that scripture the way I want. Also, too, there were scriptures that the Watchtower Society never expanded upon, but I understood them in certain ways, and I would share that information. I didn't care if it was in a Watchtower or not. God's word said what it said, and that's what he meant, and I would share that information like that, whether it was in a talk or visiting someone's home. No one really seen what I was actually doing, but I did have conflict with Jehovah's Witnesses. The 144,000 doctrine, the idea that God's going to take 144,000 to heaven, never believed that. It was an embarrassing doctrine to talk about in the door-to-door work or to anyone. So I would avoid that subject, and in my mind, I just did not believe it at all. And there's so much, and if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you know the story of, you know, the memorial and how they kept track of how many anointed are and all of that, you're going to, I mean, you know where I'm coming from. It's the most ridiculous doctrine you can ever learn. And then, of course, there was the generation of 1914. Now, if you're not a witness, of course, you don't understand what I'm talking about, but they believed that the generation of 1914 would not pass away before the end came, the end of all wicked man. Anyway, that, of course, was a lie, so they had to change it. Now they have some other strange teaching, overlapping generation thing. I don't even have to explain it. It's just complete nonsense. And when they switched over to that, that made me so angry. I knew they were telling lies, and I even sent letters to the governing body and talked to them about this. And I basically was screaming in my letter. It was all in capitals, and I just told them, I'm done with your nonsense. You know, we love Jehovah and we love Jesus Christ, so leave us alone. Don't try to figure out God's day anymore because you're not doing a good job. So, but then, you know, I would write those letters and do that, but I would, you know, I was a witness, so I felt bad that I did those things, but I kept it all to myself, and eventually I just tried to forget what I did. Well, now with hindsight, I can say, hey, that was a good thing I did, because it really expressed the real person that I was inside. So, and I can go on and on about the conflicts I had, just the way I viewed the elder bodies and how they operated, things like that. I just did not agree with, but I kept it all to myself. And so I had these conflicts all through my life, okay? But I still believed it was God's organization. And you know, even the Watchtower Society allows you to you may disagree with something, a teaching, you may disagree with how people are acting. They allow for that as long as you don't talk about it, as long as you keep your mouth shut. And what they do is they use a mechanism. They use a scripture from the book of Lamentations in the Bible where it uses some expression like, I'll have a waiting attitude towards Jehovah. Basically, they're going to wait on Jehovah to fix a problem, to straighten out an issue. And so what the organization does is they keep using that scripture to keep people's mouths shut. Just wait on God, wait on Jehovah to fix this, but just don't talk about it. And so that's what they do. That's the mechanism. And that's what keeps a lot of people in. You can still believe it's God's organization. You can disagree with a lot of things internally, but just don't talk about it. And so that's what was happening with me. But again, it would build up, build up, build up. And later on, I'll talk about a lot of the things that happened towards the end as a Jehovah's Witness before I left. But for now, we're going to leave it at that. When I finally found these lies, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's what drove me out. But now, why would I never go back? Well, as I had mentioned, let's just say you bought a car. And that car, you thought you had a good dealer that sold it to you, but then you find out that there are things about the car he did not tell you about. And so now you're angry, and you would never suggest that anyone go back to that dealer. If somebody were to ask you years later, let's say years later, you find out that dealer actually legally sold lemons. He knew what was wrong with every car, and everything he said and did was a lie. Okay, now if someone said, hey, Vincent, why would you never buy a car from that guy again? I wouldn't tell them, well, it's just because, he didn't tell me about how this battery was in bad shape in my car. No, I wouldn't say that, because yes, that's initially why I would not suggest that people go there, but the real reason now is much worse. It's much bigger. And see, that's the way it is with the Watchtower Society. You leave, you think you woke up to certain things, but then as your life changes, you realize the reasons why you left are almost insignificant. You would never go back for bigger reasons in your life. So that's what happened to me. I woke up, I realized that I had been lied to all of my life. And when you wake up as a Jehovah's Witness, it is the most traumatic experience that you can ever have. I mean, if you ever see a witness, an ex-witness say, I knew the organization was always screwed up, and I'm so glad I'm not a witness. They never woke up because they never were asleep. I'm talking about when witnesses use the word, awakened, or they woke up, or whatever, they should only use that phrase if they were a completely indoctrinated Jehovah's Witness like I was, because my awakening was just so traumatic. It was beyond the pale when it came to waking up as a witness. But if you always hated the organization and you only went to the meetings and stuff because of your parents, and later you left, don't tell me that you woke up, because you didn't, because you never were asleep in that organization. No, I woke up because many things were building up in me. And again, we'll talk more about it later, but in hindsight, it says a lot about your character. All through life, even in that organization, I loved truth. I wanted to know the truth. I loved God. I loved Jesus Christ. I loved reading, the Bible. I loved it all. But I also felt that the organization was God's organization at the same time. But the love of God was stronger within me. The love of Christ was stronger in me than the love of an organization. And obviously that's true, because I'm no longer a Jehovah's Witness. But anyway, we're going to leave it at that. And what we're going to talk about next is what followed. Once I discovered that my entire life was a lie, what happened to me physically, mentally, spiritually. We're going to talk about that more. And we're going to be going back to this subject as well, off and on, dealing with various aspects of what I just talked about. Anyway, we'll see you next time on my third video.